Hi everyone, and welcome back to Project Pro's YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Vivian and I am a data scientist here in Sydney, Australia. And I also run my YouTube channel, Candidly Vivian, where I post content on all things data science. I often get questions on how to break into data science, what subjects to study, what order to study them in. So today I thought I would make a video on a complete roadmap on how to become a data scientist in 2023. So make sure you stick around until the very end. Before we get straight into the video, I wanted to cover off one of my most frequently asked questions, and that is, do you need a master's or PhD to become a data scientist? My personal opinion is that having a postgrad degree is definitely beneficial when hiring managers are considering your application, but it is definitely not a hard requirement. It might look like that with job descriptions requiring a crazy amount of experience for the most junior data science role, and I know that can be very demotivating. But please don't let this stop you from putting an application through. I am a firm believer that your background and degree does not have a direct correlation on the quality of your work and how good you're going to be at your job. In fact, I know some PhDs who are just way too technically minded and don't actually end up surviving in a data science role. And I've also met some excellent data scientists who don't even have a degree at all. Having a degree, yes, is a more traditional pathway and will probably make you slightly more employable, as employers are so used to judging someone's resume based off their background and their qualifications. However, with the increase in non-standard education pathways for a fraction of the price and project-based sites like Project Pro, as well as the introduction of OpenAI, ChatGPT and GPT-4, I believe that the future of work will not so much be about your degree, but based on your abilities and skill sets and knowing what questions to ask. Almost all of the everyday skills that I use in my day-to-day job I did not learn during uni. I either learned them on the job or in a previous role, or from online courses or even just watching YouTube videos. Yes, my college degree in maths and statistics did teach me a bunch of theoretical concepts, but it is very rare in business that they need you to prove a particular convergence theorem. It's honestly all about applying those skills you've learned in a real-world environment. And another thing that I cannot stress enough is the importance of having a very business-oriented mindset as a data scientist, and that is something that you rarely ever learn at uni. So now that I've gotten the degree and accreditation out of the way, let's move into the second part of this video, which is exactly what skills do you need to become a data scientist? So I'm going to cover up 6 to 7 main skills and also the order in which you should learn them in. Firstly, I would have a basic understanding of maths and stats, as I think this would help you better perform your job, as you can then easily understand results and also be able to plan statistically sound experiments. For stats, I would learn things like high-level correlations, hypotheses testing, probability distributions, as well as A/B testing. And these are skills that you are likely going to be asked in technical interviews. I would also learn the basics of machine learning, so that is your supervised versus unsupervised learning, classification versus regression models, and so on. And for the maths element, I would focus on linear algebra like matrix multiplication, as well as calculus, which is used heavily in XGBoost gradient algorithms. And keep in mind that you rarely have to use this in your day-to-day job, but it is definitely something that's going to come in handy, as it will help you better understand what your machine learning model is actually doing. Now, once we're done with the theory of it all, I would then move on to learning SQL, or structured query language, or SQL, depending on what you want to call it. Now, this is super important for manipulating our data. Make sure you know your joins, your aggregations, and your window functions. As a data scientist myself, I would say that SQL is heavily underrated, and I spend at least 50% of my day job working within SQL, whether that's preparing data like reports for my stakeholders, different kinds of extractions, or even just doing data preparation for a potential model build. I personally like to use the website W3 Schools to learn SQL, but there are plenty of free online resources to learn SQL. Drop a comment down below if you want to see me make some future videos on SQL. Very happy to do that as well. Next, I would learn a programming language of choice, either R or Python, it's really up to you. Coming from a maths and stats background, I was only ever taught R during my uni degree, but I've come to realize that Python is the more industry preferred programming language, so I've picked that up on the job. Again, there are plenty of online courses where you can learn Python, and also YouTube videos out there on tutorials. I would just focus on packages like NumPy, Pandas, sklearn, and also Seaborn for visualizations. So the fourth thing that I would learn is Excel and Google Sheets. Now this is a great way for you to showcase your results to your not so technical stakeholders, or even just share data deliveries in a CSV format. My main areas of focus here would be pivot tables, being able to just create a nice combo chart with like a secondary and primary axes. I would also know how to use VLOOKUP. Again, plenty of online resources to just Google and figure out. This is actually a super underrated skill. I know plenty of very technical data scientists who can build really great machine learning neural networks, but they can't use Excel, and that really baffles me. I would then recommend learning version control via Git or Bitbucket. This is a super important skill in programming, as a lot of the time you're working with various data scientists, data engineers or software engineers on overlapping pieces of code, and you really want to make sure that you are not having conflicting commits and overriding each other's work. And the last technical skill that I would brush up on is my visualizations. Now this depends heavily on your particular company and the budget they're willing to invest into data visualizations. I've worked in companies that have used things like Tableau, which is more expensive, Power BI or Alteryx. I've also worked in companies which are a bit smaller and they use like Looker Studio, or they just rely on R and Python packages for visualizations. And lastly, an extremely underrated skill that I've already touched on a bit earlier today is verbal and written communication. If you were to only get one thing away from today's video, just know that even if you are brilliant and extremely technical, but you cannot communicate, then it is really hard for you to get recognized for your work, as so much of our job involves explaining technical concepts to our not so technical business stakeholders. So it is really important that you are able to see a project through from end to end, from the initial discussion phases with your business stakeholders to the final implementation, and communicating the outputs and the insights of your model and findings in a fast-paced business environment. I'm now going to move on to the third part of today's video, and that is, now that I have these skills, how am I going to apply and practice them? Now, of course, this depends heavily on which stage of your career you are at. So if you're still studying, obviously the best way is through an internship where you can apply these newly acquired data science technical skills and apply them in a real-world business environment. If you are a STEM student studying computer science, statistics, data science, or even like business analytics, it is very likely that during the course of your degree you will have projects where you can practice these skills, as they're very representative of what a real-world problem would look like, and it also involves you collaborating and working with different cross-functional teams. You can also use platforms like Project Pro, which have so many end-to-end data science projects that basically solve real-life business problems. And now we've learned and practiced our skills, it's time to showcase these to a potential employer. So you want to build up your portfolio and prepare on why you deserve a chance at this job. Again, it's going to depend on which stage of your career you are at, but it all comes down to just one thing, and that is how much business impact you have made. Remember, the more data science experience and impact that you can showcase, the more likely you are to get an interview. If you've worked on real-life projects within an internship or a research experiment, think about the business outcomes that this has resulted in. For example, you can say, I built a model during my internship that generated X amount of revenue for the business and resulted in 10,000 new customers applying for the product. A lot of people like to use GitHub as a way of showcasing their projects. It's basically a large software development platform where you can showcase your code, results, and projects. And it's completely fine if you have no real-world experience. I got my first internship having only done a 3-year uni degree, so that's completely normal. In examples like that, I would just focus on my critical thinking ability and my desire to learn. And if you've done any Kaggle competitions or projects online via Project Pro, feel free to talk about that, your thought process, your code, and your results. And last step is to apply for the role. Again, there could be many different pathways depending on your experience and where you are in your career. I am more than happy to make a separate video on pathways into data science, so let me know down in the comments below if that's something you would want to see. You could reach out to a recruiter on LinkedIn. You could directly message a hiring manager in a small company and see if they get back to you. And even if they don't, it gives you a chance to share your story and try to convince the hiring manager directly why you'd be a good fit for the job. If you're lucky, they might take a chance on you and just interview you, so you never know what's going to happen. Don't be afraid to reach out to people and send the first message. You never know what opportunities are going to come your way. Another option is to get a job as a data analyst or a business analyst in a company and then transfer internally once a position opens up. I'm going to wrap up today's video here. Remember that if you have just 4 out of the above 7 skills that I've talked about, you are already in a much better position than many applicants out there. The last step is just to believe in yourself and go for the role that you've always wanted. If you have any questions or topics that you would like to see me talk about, drop them in the comments below. In the meantime, go check out Project Pro. They're an absolutely incredible platform, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!